Seats. Call this meeting in order. Everyone join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please. Supervisor O'Day. Okay, we have 23 in attendance. We'll move on to citizen comments. Citizen comments. Sheriff David Beth. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. David Beth, 765 right in Wisconsin. I'd like to give one more shot at trying to do something for especially my correctional officers. And I had a wonderful conversation with one of the supervisors this past week and said that they had conversations with some other supervisors. They were looking for things that we could do to streamline or make things more efficient at the Sheriff's Department. And I guess maybe I didn't do a good job of pointing a few things out. One thing we did this past year is we brought on part-time correctional officers. If they've left in good standing with the Sheriff's Department, we've brought them back. They can work, I think we have 8 of them that we brought on this year. They can work up to 24 hours. And that's helped us with the overtime, trying to eliminate some of the overtime. And we have closed dorms. We're working on closing another dorm right now to help alleviate some of it. In the past, we've been at full capacity and we've had every single block and dorm open. Right now, I was trying to get, before I came here tonight, I thought on my way in, I'll try to see if I can figure out how many dorms or blocks are closed off. And we've closed off several. And I don't have that number, both at the detention center and at the pretrial facility. So we've been trying our best to streamline and make it as efficient and save money as we can. And if you looked at the numbers, which I know a lot of you have in the 2 different committee meetings that we went to, I presented how many overtime hours, and actually Nancy does a good job of presenting to the county board how many hours of overtime we have, and it's tens of thousands of hours. And I averaged it out since January 1st to the last pay period. Every single day we have, on average, 15 shifts. Not hours, 15 shifts between the 2 jail facilities that we have to fill. And I think that you may be, at least some people may be under the impression that if you don't give me these 6 officers, we're going to save this money. We're not. It's going to be filled with overtime. It's going to be filled at time and a half by people that are being forced to work. It's not going unpaid for. You're not saving this money. If you don't give me 6 people, it's not like these hours are not going to get filled. I got to fill them. The only thing we're doing is we're telling the correctional officers that for the last 13 years have made this county $50, $60 million in holding federal inmates. You're telling them that I'm not going to give you 6 people to help relieve some of the overtime. Like I said, every day we average 15 shifts of overtime between 2 facilities. The 6 people I've asked for are just a step toward what we've got to do. Not giving me these people is not going to eliminate these dollars. It's going to be a time and a half rather than straight time. We've done a lot of things to make the Sheriff's Department work better. And in the conversation I had this last week, with the supervisor, I said, if there's something that I'm not seeing, if there's something we can do to streamline, I am all ears. Come and look. Come and go through. Most of what we do are people. It's guarding people in our jail. It's putting people on the road. There are very few spots that I could say, let's streamline this. Maybe I'm not seeing it, but any one of you are welcome to come into any part of my department And if you see something that I'm missing, that we can streamline, I am all ears. I talked to one of the meetings. I was asked to talk to Teddy Winnett because she would give me answers to how to deal with the people that are the younger generation that come in and are looking. And I explained what I said in the meeting. She goes, "That's my presentation." She goes, "If I had the answers, I wouldn't be working here. I'd be a millionaire." She goes, "I don't have the answers." But everything that members of the board brought up to me, I researched. We do our best to streamline. We have supervisors that are doing 2 or 3 different jobs or tasks are being assigned to them. My last shot for this year's budget, I'd like for you to give me, and if the sergeants, I got it, that's something we can discuss down the road. I do need them. But the 6 correctional officers, I've got to fill those hours anyhow. I have to. I can't leave a block of 64 inmates with no one sitting in there. It's going to be filled at time and a half rather than straight time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else wishing to speak? Anybody else wishing to speak? Anybody else? Citizen comments is closed. We'll move on to announcements of the chair. I have a few. The annual county board holiday party is Tuesday, December 15th. We're going to host it at Kemper Center. That'll be from 6:30 on. The cost is $25 per person. The information's on your desk. I will keep you posted. We may have a bye week next week, November 17th, depending on what information comes in, what needs to get voted on. And if I feel and deem it unnecessary, I'll move that meeting to the first meeting, that material to the first meeting in December. So I will keep you posted. The county clerk and her staff will keep you posted as well. And moving on to the next subject, I'd like to take this time to thank all department heads from all divisions of county government for working with the county executive and this board for meeting our county budget levy limit objective of 2.5%. And by doing so, we're not interrupting any county services and giving homeowners whose homes are valued at $100,000 $1.31 less in tax in 2016 than in this year, 2050. I'd like to thank all county board supervisors for taking part in the budget process with the finance administration committees during the 3 days of budget hearings. And a special thank you to the finance committee for their endless hours of hard work, and Dave Gersten and his team, and my friend and all of our friend, Mike Harrigan, our bond counsel. Appreciate all that you've done. Last but not least, I want to thank all our county employees for the dedication and hard work. Without them, nothing would get accomplished. We all work together as a team. And that's all I have. We'll move on. County clerk.
You want to do any supervisor reports?
Supervisor reports. Supervisor Alverman, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a brief meeting this evening to meet some timing issues on one item, so I'll just give you a short report here. That item was a jurisdictional transfer of a piece of county EZ, or what you folks would call 39th Avenue, mile and a half of that is going to, was passed by our committee this evening to transfer. It's going to go to the finance committee, then to the county board, so that it can take place for 2016. The parks, we're just working on the Emerald Ash Borer right now. We did pass a new set of fees for the parks and the dog parks this evening with no changes other than a $20 change in renting a shelter. Bid specs and drawings, as I've been reporting, should be ready by early December, and we should be receiving bids by the end of January for Brookside. So that's the brief items that we handled this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other supervisor reports? Seeing none, we'll move on. County Clerk.
Policy resolution, second reading to required. One, from the Finance Administration Committee, Policy Resolution 2016 Budget Resolution. Rose, yes. Ron Frederick, yes. O'Day, yes. Colmeyer, yes. Brunig, yes. Gens, yes. Dodge, yes.
Supervisor Rose.
Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Finance Committee, I would move the 2016 budget.
2016 budget's been moved by Supervisor Rose, seconded by Supervisor Ron Frederick. Supervisor Rose.
As I told you the other night, I think we can take pride in the fact that we are $12 million below the state levy limit. If you recall, state legislation sets levy limits. We're not even close to what that levy limit is at $12 million. As was emphasized by the chairman this evening, we have a symbolic reduction in what the average homeowner is going to pay on his home. And I think a symbolic, while it is not a large reduction, I think that it does send a message that we can address the needs of this community and still keep within our levy limits, within the county board's budget resolution of 2.5%, and still have a symbolic reduction in the amount of taxes a homeowner pays. And I think they appreciate that kind of conservative financial management by the administration as well as this board. It's also well to keep in mind that equalized value is going up in this community. And a few years ago, when we had some projections about that, we were not so optimistic. However, what has been demonstrated to us is that growth here is some $375 million for equalized value in 2016, and of that, 325 million of the 375 is new growth. That is the way we can continue to address the needs of this county and still have a levy reduction on the average home. Now, I think it is well, in light of what the sheriff said, to mention that a few things about his request for the 6 correctional guards, and he also advocated before the Finance Committee addition of 2 sergeants. The committee debated this issue, and we rejected it. I will say that I spend considerable time over at the jail and have considerable contact with sheriff's deputies who transport prisoners to and from the court system. I think they do an excellent job. I see various clients at the county jail from time to time, and I think what I see over there is a good, efficient operation. But I cannot support additional jail guards at this time when you consider the fact that there are 10 vacancies in that county jail right now. And those vacancies are long outstanding. Now, whatever the reason is, maybe they need to speed up the process of training, recruitment, I don't know. Their management, they need to deal with that. But I'm certainly not going to add additional people or urge that we adopt a proposal to add additional correctional guards when there has been consistently many vacancies, and right now it's 10 vacancies. Now, we didn't ignore the sheriff's plea for more staff, but we did say in addressing that issue we would like to have a study done, and the administration proposed a study be done, which is going to take a look at the issues of overtime, staffing, scheduling, which vacancies, and how those things can be approved. It may very well be that that study by professionals will come back and say, well, we need X number of people. Or it may come back and say, we don't. We just need to have a different kind of scheduling here. We need to have a different kind of staffing. I don't know. But if we're going to pay experts considerable money to do a report, an examination of the Sheriff's Department's request and their staffing needs. I think we've got to wait until that report is presented to the board and then address whatever recommendations there might be, consistent or inconsistent with that study. For us at this juncture, merely to say, I move 6 correctional guards commencing, he had proposed in April, be it April or January or June, that makes no real sense when you're authorizing a study of the very issues that he's asking us to address. It's not a question of you or I as supervisors going over there and pointing out to the sheriff, well, here's more efficiencies that you can find. That's not our job. That's an administrator's job. What we deal with is policy. I'm not interested in going over to the Sheriff's Department and pointing out, well, I think you can do this, or I think you can do that. That's his job. But I think what we can address is what policy recommendations will be when that report comes to us. So I appreciate what the sheriff has said this evening. The board gave him consideration. We debated the issue, and we've authorized the study. We can debate the results of that study, whatever the results may be, and I'm not going to prejudge it here. Are there going to be increases or other recommendations? But let's wait until that comes forward. I addressed this in my budget statement here tonight right off the bat, because if someone intends to recommend to the board that we add 6 correctional guards or 2 more sheriff's sergeants, I'd urge you to hold your fire on this. Let's wait until that study is done. Let them take a look at the 10 vacancy issues, the overtime issues, the staffing issues, the types of scheduling that they have over there before we jump the gun. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Seeing no lights, this is a simple, oh, we've got one. Okay. Supervisor Poole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to change the employee health insurance deduction by 15% for each category for 2016. That means the platinum would go to 16%, gold to 17%, silver to 18%, bronze to 23%, and blue to 25%, which are the wellness program categories there. With the wage and compensation study, we raised employees up to the market average pay, and with this change, we will match the market for health insurance also. The savings to the taxpayers would be $1,834,000. That would allow the levy to be lower than last year. In fact, the levy would go down 0.5%. That way, our citizens would also be able to participate in the economic boom we have experienced in Kenosha County and possibly have some money for the jailers. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Seconded by Supervisor Decker. Any discussion on that? We'll go to that portion now. Supervisor Arrington, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I don't quite understand and follow the flow of our conversation. Per Supervisor Terry Rose, we were discussing a study about broadening our Sheriff's Department, correctional officers, and et cetera, and then we are talking about increasing different portions of could you tell me again? I guess I'm confused with the conversation that we're having right now, because it kind of threw me off that we went from talking about the jailers to talking about the employees and platinum and different things. So I don't support that, whatever it is, because it to me, in my mind, it doesn't have anything, well, it has something to do with it, but that's not the basis of our conversation. I thought that we were talking about specifically the Sheriff's Department. I guess I'm lost in this meeting at budget time, that we would come out with this at this time. The timeliness of this discussion is got me wondering why we're having it right now as we're getting ready to address our budget and approve our budget. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Supervisor Skalitsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I support that motion. And the reason is because although there was a compensation study done, it only addressed salaries. The county board followed the recommendations of that survey or study, and we moved to increase salaries. But there was a conscious decision not to address anything with regards to the health care. There have been a number of supervisors that have, including myself, that have explained and demonstrated through our own personal experiences what the private sector in the real world is actually experiencing, and yet there was no opportunity or, I guess, action by anybody, whether it's on the Finance Committee or any other committee, to make any other changes. So I'm supporting this motion because this is the exact time that motions of this nature are brought up. The reason is because nobody on the Finance Committee made any motions, and this is the only other time a motion of this nature is allowed to be brought forth for a vote by the entire board. Our job as supervisors are to look out for the taxpayers and oversee the administration. The administration's job is to look after the employees and make sure that they are functioning at a highly efficient level. So as a result, this is the exact time that a motion of this nature would be brought forth. I do support it, and I would encourage other supervisors to encourage it tonight also. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Supervisor Boyd Frederick, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. I do not support this because the problem we have right now is, let's take a look at the jailers. The reason we're having a problem with getting jailers in is the benefits that were cut a few years ago. So now what we're going to do is cut more benefits to the employees. So let's just not make it the problem with the jailers, but let's expand it throughout all the county departments to where, in the end, it'll cost the taxpayers more. You're right, we are supposed to watch out for the taxpayers, but we're supposed to be wise enough not to cut things today where it's going to cost them a whole lot of money tomorrow. Let's think this through and do what's right for the taxpayer tomorrow and do what's right for the employees today.
Thank you, sir. We'll move on to Supervisor Rose. You have the floor, sir.
All right, thank you. I'm going to oppose this proposition, and if you recall the discussion that we had with that compensation study, it dealt with salary and benefits. Now, it didn't focus solely on health insurance there, but it did look upon the issue of salary and benefit package here, and the board supported it. Now, the proposal here this evening comes up with the percentage of 15%, and if one is going to support 15% or 18 or 25 or whatever it is, I'd like to know what your rationale is for that percentage. Why that percent? If this is a step in the direction of we pay half, they pay half, I'd like to know that up front here. This issue of health insurance is one that has been long standing on the county board. First, it was the issue of employee contribution at all, because there was no county board or county employee contribution. Then it was the county board supervisor. Should there be a contribution, or should we have it at all? And then the contribution came in for employees. It came in for supervisors. We eliminated it for supervisors. We edged it up for employees. And then we had the study which said, this is our recommendations. These are what is consistent with the marketplace, and the board supported it. So when we come forward this evening and say, well, we need to boost that up and we'll save some more money, well, sure. But what is your rationale here? I think one of the issues that we are going to be facing more and more, and one which we will hear about in the marketplace more, is a shortage of employees. You know, there are companies right in this community and companies in this country that are having difficulty hiring qualified people to fill positions. Have you read the Kenosha News and seen these very large ads from employers in this community, job fairs? They can't fill the jobs that they have. Well, that same thing can happen here and is happening in some of the departments as I think the Personnel Director can testify too. If you keep whittling away at these things, in other words, one time you pass the wage and compensation study, and then a few months later you take something away, what message is that delivering to the general public? But what is our goal here in supporting this proposition? I think we did have a goal in supporting the study. The goal was we were going to have our wages and benefits consistent with the marketplace. And we have seen, as I've said, job shortages, inability to fill jobs, Kenosha and elsewhere. So how is this consistent with that, and what is this consistent with? Therefore, I'd urge you to defeat the resolution.
Thank you, Supervisor Rose. Move on to Supervisor Ritzlaff. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I fully support this motion by Supervisor Poole. As you know, I've looked at our health insurance from so many different ways. Actually, I just today was reading something from the Kaiser Family Foundation study, which is reputable. The average coverage, people that are covered by a health plan, the average premium rate is for a family coverage in the United States is $17,545. Of that, the employees pay roughly $5,000 that in a premium contribution. Kenosha County, just as an example, our family premium rate comparable is $21,375. Our average premium contribution is $870, 4.7%. Both groups do not include deductibles, co-insurance, co-pays. Our health insurance plan, I understand everything Supervisor Rose said, and I agree with many points. This health insurance plan, though, is never been touched to anywhere close to what anyone has in the marketplace. I looked at Walworth County, Waukesha County, Racine County. They are all have health plans that their employees either contribute more or have more deductibles and co-insurance than ours. It's just the way it is, and I really think we are looking at something that the employees should contribute a little bit more. And I think asking for something that is still way less than the marketplace with these contributions is something that we owe the people that are paying this bill, the taxpayers. So I understand everything that as far as employee retention, but it gets to the point where the health plan, they just have to contribute because it's so expensive. And this is, I think we're in desperate need of doing something like this. So that's why I support it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Move on to Supervisor Grady. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will not be supporting this proposition. We have dedicated, hardworking employees in this county that have seen us through the difficult times when we had the recession. They were taking pay cuts, or I should say maybe even wage freezes. And now that prosperity is coming back a little bit, we find ourselves in a very competitive marketplace. You can cite national averages as much as you would like, but we have to look what's going on in this county specifically. There is intense competition for qualified personnel. Read the papers as Supervisor Rhodes has illustrated. Places, these big boxes starting out at $20 per hour with basically little or no qualifications. We are competing with them. So if we're not competing with wages per se, we're competing with benefits. In each budgetary cycle we've had for the past several, the employees of this county have been responsible for an increasing share of their health care cost. You can argue it could be greater, it could be less. That debate could go on forever. But basically, if we are going to maintain our presence as a leader, we have to react to the circumstances around us. So I encourage you to defeat this amendment.
Thank you, sir. Supervisor Poole, you have the floor, sir.
I think Supervisor Retzloff answered Supervisor Rose's questions very well. Thank you.
All right. Supervisor Kohlmeyer, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do agree that we need to look at insurance more closely than we have and take real steps towards comparing it to the private sector and moving that closer. I've supported further increases in the insurance rates in the past. However, I don't think you can move the rate 15% from 1 to 16 in 1 year. I think that it's got to be a little bit more gradual. So for that reason, I'm going to vote against this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Move on to Supervisor Anita Johnson.
Thank you. First, I want to note that part of the reason that I can't support this is because of the wonderful job we've done with building the economy in Kenosha, which has made it more competitive for us in the workplace to get employees. That being said, we do need to move in the direction of aligning with the private sector. We definitely do. We're nowhere near what they are. I just don't feel that jumping to the levels that we've had put before us is the right move right now for us. One of the reasons I had proposed the spousal, the dual coverage, is because it wouldn't have affected them in that matter. We could have just dropped people who are dual coveraged or asked them to pay a premium, and it wouldn't have had the same impact outright as raising their premiums by 15%. You know, I think it's commendable what we've done for the economy here in the county, working together with CABA and the county executive and workforce development. But in that token, we have made it very competitive to keep our employees. I mean, wages are increasing the way they should be because the economy is growing. So we have to keep that in mind, and we have to remain competitive. I would consider looking at the dual coverage. I would consider increasing this gradually over a period of time. I just can't support this big of a jump. Thank you.
Thank you. Move on to Supervisor Hallman. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to be nerdy and get into the policy weeds about this because I feel like enough of us have done that already. I don't support the motion at all, but I do want to point one thing out. A lot of this sounds incredibly sadomasochistic to me, and I'll explain why. When our consultant was here going through our health insurance plan, and I asked the question, what would happen if we had younger employees, if we look at how to attract younger employees, the next generation of county workers, what that might mean to our health insurance fund. And she talked about the difference that that would make in the claims. That was an easy way out. That was an easy way out for everybody. And for 5 seconds, it felt like there was some unity in this room on that. And now that's gone. So now we're back to the conversation of let's make our employees pay more so that we can go at election time knocking on doors saying, congratulations, I saved you money, which puts everybody else in the position who doesn't want to necessarily go that route of not necessarily looking that great. It's a lose-lose situation for everybody. I tried to present you all with a win, but it completely got ignored. This is incredibly sadomasochistic to consider something like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Gens, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When you look at this, I'm not going to repeat what everybody else has said, but when you look at the state of our county, both with economic development and financial strength and anything else you want to measure, we're among the leaders. We're on the cutting edge as far as counties go. And when I look at it as our employees are the foundation of that. And you want to keep chipping away at the foundation. We're not going to be where we are with the strength as a county. And I don't think that you keep eroding. And occasionally I agree with Supervisor Rose. This is one of those times. And that's, why would you give somebody a small raise and then do this?
Do you want me to mark that down? Or?
Yeah, you might want to do that. But I mean, we're talking out of both sides of our cheek on this one. We just did a compensation study. We're going to raise your wages, 1.5 points, and now we're going to slam you with a benefit cut. I mean, when you look at it, again, it's been debated tonight very eloquently, but, our foundation is our employees, and we can't keep whittling away at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Ron Frederick, do you want to talk anymore? Oh. All right. Oh, there we go. Now you can speak on it. Go ahead.
Any comment I have would probably not be thought so, but I guess it's probably a way for certain members of this board to vote against the budget overall. So I suppose if this goes down, then you can be assured that the ones that support this resolution are going to vote against the budget, and that'd be a good excuse for them.
Okay. So, now that, seeing no other lights here, let me clear it. I'm going to get you right now, okay? Supervisor Rose, you have the floor.
All right, thank you. I think there are a couple of points that should be mentioned and cleared up and responded to here, one of which was we pay $21,000 plus for a family policy, whereas the Kaiser study says the average of whoever that group that was studied is $17,000 per year. Well, I'm not saying we shouldn't look at studies. I think we need to look at studies. We need to keep an open mind. But merely coming forward and say our costs are 21 plus and their costs, whoever they are 17, doesn't really tell me anything. We have an older population. What about the group that is paying 17? Is this a nationwide study, or is this just something that was, Kaiser is in California? Is this in the West? What are the health care costs here as compared to elsewhere? The studies that have been published in the newspaper indicate that we are at the highest level. Why is that? What about those people who are paying 17 in this study? I don't know the answer to that. We've got to take a look at these health care costs, because you can't just say, well, 21,000 plus, my gosh, that's too much money. I agree, it's too much money. But why is it too much money? It's because the health care costs around here are way ahead of health care costs in many other places in the country, and that may account for the 17,000. I don't know. But those facts aren't brought before us. When you say, well, $5,000 deductible, we, on the other hand, have a contribution now toward the health insurance. We have employees paying a copay for doctor visits or hospital or emergency room or prescription drugs. What does that all add up to? That gives me a much more complete comparison merely by then saying, as you have, look, they have a $5,000 deductible, we have zero. That doesn't tell me anything. What does the employee here pay out in terms of costs compared to the $5,000 deductible? That's more telling. But I think, as I said before, two of the most telling differences. One, we have an older population, and I don't know if we're comparing it to a younger population. And two, healthcare costs around here exceed the national average. What are we going to do about that? These are kind of things that need to be studied, discussed. Certainly this resolution doesn't address them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Move on to Supervisor Arrington.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And now that I have, regained my sanity, now that we're talking about this, one of my pet peeves as a county board supervisor is that I'm very much aware that we are responsible for providing the taxpayer with a service that we ensure that we're saving them money. But we also have employees that work for us in Kenosha County, and I'm very big on respect. And I just felt like that since I wasn't included in any conversations, and I believe that this is the place to address this. I heard whispers and whimpers of these conversations, and you can't possibly expect this body to endorse this resolution when the conversation wasn't abroad. We as supervisors need to learn how to open the lines of communication and sit down and have these discussions. Personally, I don't like a discussion that's had behind my back and then you bring it to the floor and expect for me to support it. That's not how we do Kenosha County business. I support Sheriff Beth. I've always supported the Sheriff's Department. I know that we've got an issue where Sheriff Beth is asking us to do something on his behalf. Whatever we can do as a body, I'll listen to and speak with my other fellow supervisors about that. But we have to get out of this habit of last minute. Talked about this last year. This is not the place to bring that. I understand that some of the supervisors are passionate about getting their agenda across of what they see fit would be beneficial to the taxpayer in Kenosha County. You're correct. It's the timeliness of how we do things that make it look like that we're pandering and that we're pulling stunts on the county board floor to further the agenda. 15% is ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, if you'd went half of that, I'd have listened to it. But to go from the one non-extreme to the next extreme, it is just disrespectful all the way around to each and every person that works in Kenosha County. You cannot ask those people to do that. So again, I'm going to ask this body not to support this and let us move on and move forward. You know, I don't believe, unless there's something I'm not understanding that you share with us, Supervisor Rose, I don't believe that our taxpayers are in jeopardy. I understand that Supervisor Rose said something to the effect that we're $12 million below a certain expectation, which says to me that we're safe. In the future, this may be something that we want to look at. But we have to stop being last minute. My email works, my cell phone works, text messages work. I have 3 email addresses where you can get in contact with me. I guess the word for don't expect me to support anything where I'm not included in on the conversation. You know, if you're going to talk to a specific group of supervisors about what I deem a hidden agenda, something that you're going to try to push on the night when we're approving the budget, you will not ever get my support on that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Supervisor Decker, you have the floor.
So I have one supervisor here complaining about amendments being brought on the county board floor for the budget resolution. But when I'm in the human services budget meeting, I get another supervisor telling me that we're supposed to bring it to the county board floor. That's where we're supposed to discuss it. So which place are we supposed to discuss it? Or are we supposed to discuss it in neither place? I would like to know, because when I get one supervisor telling me to discuss it on the county board floor and another telling me to discuss it in meetings, it's a little contradictory. I think we can do it in both places. That's why we're here. And for someone to say he wants a phone call in advance, there's something called violation of open meetings laws. You cannot go around talking to all the supervisors, or even a majority of the supervisors, without a meeting posted. So if someone expects a phone call to go to everyone about what's going on the county board floor beforehand, that's illegal. That's against the law.
Let's bring it back to the.
I'm just commenting on these things, that maybe that's why some of us don't bring it, because we don't want to break the law. Thank you.
Thank you.
Call for the question, Mr. Chairman.
The question has been. Oh, you got to hit your button. But there's someone before you, so I got to go to him first. Supervisor Ritzloff.
I think a lot of this probably is directed at me because I'm involved in this. As you know, since I've been here, I've talked about this. I think I am for this, but obviously there's not a lot people are. What we really, really, really need to do is look at our health plan very seriously. And I mean seriously, okay? Not just, I know we did have the meeting, Ed, I appreciate that very much. I know you've been open-minded, everyone has. This is no pointing fingers. This is difficult. It's things. It is. It's complicated to people that aren't involved in it. It just is. So I think we really need to keep an open mind on this, because it is expensive. It's our biggest item, and I really just want to reiterate that it's not some hidden agenda here. I appreciate our employees. It's just there are so many other options that we can do. And I know that Anita brought up, and I was going to bring that up tonight, to do the spouse carve-out or waiver situation. That wouldn't change things. It's just if someone else is covered, they could go to another employer and save us some money. We were told that would be about $600,000. We have some opportunities here to save money without killing people's morale, without having to try to compete with the other employers. So I just want to bring that out, that it's, a lot of this probably is set on me because I've been the one that's been pushing for this. It's not something that I'm here for a hidden agenda. I appreciate our employees very much, and I've been treated with nothing but professionalism from Human Services, from the people in the administrative and finance staff. So I think that's where it's kind of at with this. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Supervisor Ron Frederick.
I would move to call for the question.
Okay, it's been moved by Supervisor Ron Frederick to call the question. Supervisor David Arrington had second that. I'm going to clear the board right now. This requires 2/3 vote. If you're ready to call the question, vote yes. If you're against calling the question and wish to talk more on it, vote no.
There it goes.
Okay, we will call the question. Okay, roll call's been requested. I want to repeat.
Let Edie get it set up, please.
I'm going to repeat what the amendment to the policy resolution is. The amendment is to increase all levels of employee contribution to health insurance by 15%. This would mean that platinum would go from 1% to 16%. Gold would go from 2% to 17%. Silver would go from 3% to 18%. Bronze would go from 8% to 23%. And blue would go from 10% to 25%. Is that correct, the maker of the motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So if you're in favor of increasing the health insurance by 15% to all those values which I just spoke to you on, we're going to have a roll call on this. Vote yes if you're in favor of doing that, increasing that to the county employees, or no if you're against that. Okay. So what do we got there? Fails? All right, that motion fails. Now, seeing no other lights, I'll let her clear the board there. There was no other lights. Supervisor Hom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Motion to approve the 2016 Kenosha County budget.
Second.
It's already on the floor, so.
Just wanted to make sure.
Thanks for making sure. The roll call's been requested. What we're voting on now is the original motion to adopt the policy resolution 2016 as presented initially. Vote yes if you're in favor, or no if you're against it. And it was seconded, and then we went to No, there was no lights on, no lights on the board. I mentioned that before I spoke, so. And there is nothing blinking on the screen, as you can see behind me and to the side of you as well.
It just threw me off with Supervisor Home and moving it.
All right, so we're all back on the same page now? All right, thank you. All right. Your vote will be recognized. Supervisor Decker would like to recognize her vote from change from a yes to a no. Is that correct? Correct. Okay. It passes 19-4. All right. County Clerk?
Resolution 52 from the Finance Administration Committee, an initial resolution authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $11,700,000 general obligation promissory notes for budgeted capital projects, including road and highway improvements. Rose, yes. Frederick, yes. O'Day, yes. Colmeyer, yes. Brunig, yes. Gens, yes. Dodge, yes.
Supervisor Rose?
All right, thank you, and I would move the budget resolution, or the bond resolution.
Resolution 52 has been moved by Supervisor Rose, seconded by Vice Chair Bruning. Supervisor Rose.
If you look at your budget book, the list of capital projects, including the road and highway improvements, this is the bonding resolution that will pay for those items. Tuesday night at our public hearing, I mentioned some of them. I will just reiterate some of them as a reminder. The Civic Center development project of some $500,000, and I gave you the addresses of those pieces of property for future possible development. $600,000 for the highway garage roof, $450,000 for the fueling system at the highway department. The information technology budget of some $2.5 million, $635,000 for the Joint Services Public Software project. It also includes 13 miles of asphalt and the beginning of the County Trunk Highway C project. Those are some of the highlights. Some of the more other things are listed there in the book. You can take a look at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no lights, this requires 3/4 vote. Vote yes if you're in favor, or no if you're against. Roll call was requested. Passes 22-1. Or 21 to, no, 22-1. 22-1. County Clerk, sorry.
Resolution 53 from the Finance Administration Committee, an initial resolution authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $4,400,000 general obligation bonds or promissory notes for public safety building remodeling. Rose, yes. Ron Frederick, yes. O'Day, yes. Colmeyer, yes. Brunig, yes. Gens, yes. Dodge, yes.
Supervisor Rose.
I will move the resolution.
Resolution 53 has been moved by Supervisor Rose, seconded by Supervisor Colmeyer. Supervisor Rose.
All right, this finances the remodeling of the second floor of the public safety building for the purposes of the medical examiner's office and emergency government command center. It's been determined that the second floor would be better than their current locations. Additionally, Kenosha Hospital is closing the morgue for the Kenosha County Medical Examiner's Office, requiring that we relocate. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no lights, roll call is requested. Vote yes if you're in favor, or no if you're against, please. Resolution 53 passes unanimously. Hold on, what's your point of order? State your point.
I need, through the permission of the chair, to give a statement. I want something added to the minutes and before we adjourn. Am I out of order to ask for that?
Can you answer that, Corp Counsel? Is he out of order now? It's got to be agenda, right? Well, I don't know what he wants to say. Yeah.
I don't believe it's out of order.
Supervisor Arrington, you have the floor.
Briefly, I need it added to the minutes in the statement that I was speaking of when I referenced email and I referenced telephone. and I referenced things. I never spoke ever of having any meetings. I just spoke of ways to contact me if we were going to ever have a meeting in Human Services, but I need that put into the minutes that at no given time did I ever reference that I wanted to have an illegal meeting. My email would be to send me maybe this information that you're interested in sharing with this body so that I would be up to speed and understanding what it is that we're trying to do in this body. But at no given time did I ever make any reference to any illegal meeting that I wanted to participate in. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We've had a motion to adjourn by Supervisor Decker. We have a second by Supervisor John O'Day. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed. And you too, Johnny, you can say that too, if you needed that.
Here, you need to sign these before you go, because you're